now I get to choose who I want to be going forward.
I didn't get the thing that I wanted, but I got the building blocks that can get me there.
At the same time, you allowed for all this other stuff to come through. So what if you shift your mindset to what was present and what beautifully came through for you? All of the worry and fear, and am I doing the right thing? And am I creating in a positive way? And am I a good manifester? It all falls away. You really probably set an inner subconscious intention to put the pieces together.
We get to play, right? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Awaken Boho podcast with Claire Boho. Happy 2025, everyone. Today I am joined by my dear friend and fellow intuitive coach, Dan Blackman. About a year ago, Dan and I did a juicy podcast about a life experiment that we were both running. Basically, we both independently challenged ourselves whether we could run out of money and what that would look like. So as you can imagine, when you challenge life, it challenges you back. We have both gone through some interesting learning experiences over the past 12 months, and today we sat down to reflect on the transformative lessons that contoured our lives throughout 2024 and how we're carrying these into 2025. We unpack the raw and real emotional highs and lows of living a year in full surrender and share insights to help you cultivate abundance, resilience, and a deeper sense of trust in your path. You'll hear about our respective journeys of constantly coming back to trust and abundance against the backdrop of life's unexpected curveballs and thinning bank accounts. We explore topics such as setting intentions, health and wealth manifestation, the importance of identity shifts for sustainable personal growth, and standing up for oneself. This conversation was so rich and thought-provoking that I've split it into two parts to give each topic the space it deserves. Let's dive right into part one. Have fun. Hi.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. Happy 2025.
Happy 2025.
Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah. It's amazing to have you. So today, Dan and I wanted to talk about 2024, a year that has just ended. I mean, I don't know about you, but it is 9th of January on the clock. And for me, it still feels like, I'm just like, okay, like it's time to end the year and start a year. My beginning of the year has been very slow and it continues to be very slow, but I am just trying to not judge that and just be with that, just see whatever, is my pacing, whatever's going on, and just be in the present moment. And my entire holiday season was like that. I spent it in the countryside, in the mountains, in a cabin with my boyfriend, and like seeing some friends and just not really doing much. But it was perfect. And I feel like I'm still sort of just going with the slow, easing into it, and still sort of thinking about 2024 and processing it and reflecting upon it. And still sort of refining my intentions for 2025. What do I want to see going forward? What do I want to focus on? What do I want to create? Yeah, slowly stepping into that. How about you, Dan? How have you been over the holidays, these past weeks? How has your year started? How's it going?
It's going great. I would say the most interesting thing about it is that I had almost the opposite experience. So the end of 24 had a big win associated with it. And I got thrust into a new liminal space that I've wanted for probably 8 years, that I've manifested for about 8 years. And I'm finally fully in that space. And so the last month has been like I went through some kind of time warp, really. I'm somewhere between the 17th of December and now. And even like just after Thanksgiving, it was just like, wow, like you're here, you get to look at everything differently. Talk about circumstances, and when circumstances change, limited beliefs can fall away or limited beliefs can come into play. It was a big node point for me from 2024 to 2025. So even in the way that I've been sitting with everything that is, I'm sort of having a coming out of the cave moment in 2024, having, done the self-love, self-compassion journey for the last couple of years. Now I'm in a place where I've done some actions in 2024 that changed my circumstance, and I get to experience things like pride instead of guilt. Or there's just so many shifts available in feelings. And so as I sit with them, time just seemed to accelerate somehow. I mean, I can't believe it's the 9th of January already. And a whole day will go by and I've had all of these big, deep cheesecake eating, fudge eating kind of thoughts where I just sit in the yumminess of the human experience. And I'm like, wow, yesterday was, wait, what? What time is it? What month is it? So I feel like I've just gone through some kind of wormhole, you know?
The time, I feel like everything is speeding up, but I felt like that already last year. And I remember in November, I reunited with a lot of friends that I haven't seen since July. And it just felt like yesterday. And I was like, oh my God, like it's been this many months. How have you been? What's been up? I feel like time has been speeding up. Like I don't understand when this year has gone. And my friend is like, absolutely. Even my 10-year-old is saying, Mom, everything's faster. Like the day is gone again. And so I don't really understand all that much about astrology, but I follow people sometimes who like, read into it and do like forecasts for the year. And so apparently all of these big planets that stay in one sign for like years and years and years, like, I don't know, like six planets are changing
Yep.
signs here.
Yep.
And so they're like, it's going to be a whole new experience of reality. Like we're like, we never experienced the world in this way. We never experienced life in this way. Pluto just entered Aquarius, I think, in November. And that's like a 15, 16 year cycle. So
Yeah.
like, we've never experienced that in our lifetimes. Like the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, I think it was like the French and American Revolution, right? So like, that's the kind of age we're in for. I was just reading a newsletter from somebody yesterday, a big thinker and a founder of this like huge company about optimizing pretty much biohacking and meditation and things like that. And he was saying this year, 2025, everything is going to change. In like 3 years, we're going to have robots walking down the streets because AI, like this year, it's going to be exponential.
Yeah.
And he was like, the opportunity that, is in front of us it's like, it's unimaginable. But also, of course, like it's going to, it could create a lot of chaos and replace a lot of just, like people are not going to need workers anymore. Right. But like, if we seize the bull by the horns, like the opportunity is really there. But I think none of us can really fathom just how much things can change and will change this year. And with this quickening, it's funny because we were having a little get together with my friends for New Year's Eve. And at some point I like look at the clock and it feels like midnight has like, we just, passed midnight and a few people left just after midnight. And then I'm like chilling on the sofa for a bit. And then I check the clock and it's 2 a.m. And I'm like,
Where'd that 2 hours go?
where did
Yeah.
those 2 hours go? And I was like, that was like the first 2 hours of the year. And then the next day I'm reading this horoscope thing for 2025. And yeah, and they're saying like, if you thought 2024 was quick, like buckle in because 2025 is going to be even faster. So I'm like, okay, it's good to, like there's this part of me that judges a lot. It's like, why are you not doing anything, Claire? Like, why are you spending your days like, just taking it slow and like meditating and thinking and going for walks? Like you need to go, 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 right? Like the holidays are over. And then there's another part of me that is like, shh, like maybe savor this time. Because once
I
things
really, yeah.
start, then things start moving, they'll move like this.
I really feel like that's the call when things are quickening and moving faster, whatever, is to get more in the present moment. It's almost like the clarion call is, hey, notice yourself, notice where you are, notice your present moment, be with this human experience because it's going to go faster than you can control. So let go of control, let go of a lot of the lessons I'm hearing from friends are very similar right now. Like the words
Yeah.
people are coming up with in 2025 are varied. Like mine is a form, like health is what came to me as a concept, but healthy is what I chose as the word because I'm going to be healthy. What does it mean to be healthy? Be in a state of healthiness, as opposed to setting a typical goal for 2025, which would be I'm going to lose 25 pounds or whatever. I'm going to embody a healthy individual in 2025. 2025 is going to be a healthy year, not healthier, not healthiest, not with healthiness, but because things are moving so fast, and because we're trying to control all of our surroundings and we really can't. Like, can we even control our food supply? Can we control what comes into our bodies anymore? Like, some of this stuff gets so challenging that you can't react fast enough. So, but you can be with yourself and you can be in fear about it, or you can choose to be present and in love with the experience about it too. And choosing that for me is easier if I pick sort of a passive verb, and look at that as my action and claim it as I am healthy, and then move forward into healthiness as an action.
I love that. I just recorded and released a podcast episode about setting intentions for the new year. And I talked about that a lot. Setting an intention versus setting a New Year's resolution. Because I find the last time I set New Year's resolutions, I had this like whole list of I'm going to be fluent in Mandarin. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be like this ripped and like, da da da. And it's like this action based list. And I find it's so easy when you have this action plan and then you don't follow through on the action. It's so easy to then self-flagellate. It's like, oh no, I failed, right? Because you didn't follow the plan to the T. And then you're like, I failed because you did. You failed on the to-do list. Like you didn't do what you said you would do. Whereas if you have an intention, and that can be just one word, it can be an emotional state, it can be something that you want to embody or experience more of or, explore. It just, it doesn't have to look like something. So like if you're healthy, it doesn't mean every day I'm going to eat a salad and, walk, I don't know how many thousand steps. And then if one day you don't do it, you've already failed. And then like you were going to continue from this like self-hatred, self-flagellation, failure energy. And like, how's that going to work out for you, right? So I love that. And so I had Dan on the podcast. The episode came out only a few months back, but we recorded it actually a year ago in January 2024. And again, I'm like,
Amazing.
where did the year go? But yeah, speaking about health, I'm just thinking back to this last year, the year that you've had, because there's been a lot of challenges for you, right? Around your health, your kids' health. So I'm just wondering if you have anything to say about that. You did already mention a little bit how this past year has been for you, or like what you've learned or what you're sort of taking away from it. And if you have anything to reflect upon around that or like a guiding question, if you like, you don't have to take
Sure.
more minute. But what I like is, what do you want to take with you from the last year and what do you want to leave in the year? Like that's kind of a good one.
Okay. Yeah. So you're packing for 2025 and you're throwing stuff out.
Right.
You're going to Marie Kondo 2024. You're going to keep the joy and get rid of the non-joy. So I think, yeah, from the health standpoint, I started the year with the appendicitis, and I think we talked about that. I think one of the positives that came out of that was I realized that being in the moment when you're unhealthy and when you're having a surgery or something that was unexpected, and being present with what is, shifts your whole paradigm. It factors out the guilt, it factors out the shame, it factors out the shoulda, woulda, couldas. If you take the acceptance first as you're having the present moment experience, what I learned in 2024 is you do less mindset work after the fact. There's less mindset work. You're going back in the past, like I've always had this bad pattern, I've always been unhealthy. You factor out the self-deprecation by accepting and being okay with being not okay in the moment. So when I remember last year when I was sick, I was just present with it. I can't do anything about it. I surrendered. I dropped the attachments to, getting back to some kind of a form after the appendicitis. I had, dropped worry about, well, I've got, gastro issues and now I need to do something about it.
Mhm.
I was just present with asking my body what it needed and giving it that. And so I think over the course of 2024, slowly improved my health, not necessarily deliberately, but intentionally, with the idea that I'm going to listen to my body, I'm going to trust what it needs, and I'm going to give it what it needs, whether it's sleep or water or supplements or, I was a little impulsive on things in 2024, I think. So I would do less of that in 25 because what that was teaching me was noticing where I was not enough. So I got impulsive around my not enoughness. I would say, oh, well, I got to quick fix this. So now that I've noticed that and I'm more aware of it, when that comes back, when that energy comes back, I can take a little bit more pause, a little bit more breath, think a little bit broader about what information is coming into my system and why it's here, and act a little bit more holistically, for things rather than just, buying the quick fix pill this or the quick fix, gut thing there. And some of those were good And some of those were helpful, and most of them taught me things.
I really resonate with a lot of what you're saying when you just find out about something, and it can be a health thing or something that you've been doing or eating or behavior you've been engaging in. And then like there's just this like shock horror moment when like I've been doing this and it's really, really, really not been good for me. And then there comes this like rush of like, God, like I've been doing this thing and it's so horrible and I'm in this bad habit and it's been fucking me up and I fucked myself up. So I fucked up. And now I feel all this guilt and this reproach. And now I need to like act. I need to, the quick fix. I need to quickly start undoing the thing. And I had a moment like that with something in September. And I know how the mind just gets so engaged and you like freak out about it. And it's not even, it doesn't even deserve a massive, what does really, what a concept. Does something deserve a big freak out? Like, not really. It doesn't really, like, it's good to start paying attention to things, right? But when you're in that freak out mode, how much good are you gonna, like how much, are you gonna change something towards the positive? So I totally remember I had a moment like that in September. And then I was like, oh my God, like I've been doing this thing and now I need to like completely undo it. And I need to completely cut this thing or this behavior or this consumption or whatever. And like, it's terrible. And I've been doing something really bad. And now I don't even know what to do with myself. And then, as the months went by over the next 2 months, maybe, I was like, okay, like, I don't want to live that way. I don't want to like be judgmental towards something, and it could like be a thing with your diet, right? Like you realize, oh my God, I'm eating so much of this and it's so processed or whatever. And then you're like, I need to cut that out completely. And then you kind of like vilify the thing. And then you kind of vilify people around you. No, that's so bad, Everybody who engages in this behavior, I don't know, like drinks alcohol or smokes cigarettes or eats processed food, like that's horrible. And then you kind of start judging it as a protection mechanism. It becomes easier for you to not engage in that behavior when you judge everybody around you. Like, that's so bad. And I was like, I don't want to participate in that. Like, I don't want to live in that. And so, like, getting really cautious. Can I just ease off a little bit and just, like, create that spaciousness between me and the thing and me and my emotions about the thing and me and my thoughts about how I should be living my life and what healthy behavior is or isn't? And, like, can I just like step back from all of that and just take a breath and be like, what gets to happen next? And maybe I don't have to be perfect, right? And maybe I get to live a healthy, aligned life without being perfect and doing all the perfect behaviors. So that's for me, that's something that I'm definitely still learning.
Yeah, I love that, because what you described is something that I really want to take from 24 to 25 is my awareness practices have brought me into noticing the distance between where I am and where I might like to be, or I might think I should be, or where my emotions want to take me, or where my emotions are. And am I inventing a new predator in my life? Like, is all of a sudden shredded cheese like the worst, like the giant lion that's going to destroy my life and take 3 years off of it? Like, because shredded cheese has an ingredient in it that's basically sawdust, Like, there's sawdust in shredded cheese. There's dust mites in shredded cheese. Like, buy the brick and shred it yourself. It's like, but I don't want to, and you could turn that into a big giant, like man versus bear on Threads or whatever, you could put something crazy out there. It's like block cheese versus shredded cheese, and make a big thing out of it. Or you could just, give yourself a pass for not knowing that and,
Right.
knowing that it's okay. And cheese is okay, and cheese is not the devil, and, warehouses are not evil, and all those kind of things. So you could go off the deep end for sure. I think just noticing that awareness piece of noticing the distance between, like, I don't feel healthy. Why don't I feel healthy? And maybe this is actually, I'm feeling healthy, but I'm not used to feeling this way. So I don't think it's healthy. Like, it might actually be healthy. So sitting with, okay, what's my homeostasis? Like, I've been unhealthy all year and now I do something really good and I feel terrible.
Wow.
Am I going to do this and feel terrible all the time now? Uh, like you go and you work out and you really sore the next day and you're like, why the heck am I doing this? Am I always going to feel this way? So just noticing the distance, it builds in this kind of grace, I think is what I wanted to get to. It builds in this grace and self-compassion. Like, okay, I'm not where I perceive I should be. Oh, there's so much to unpack there, limited beliefs and everything else. There's just magic in being and saying, I'm okay with being okay, and I'm okay with being not okay. So
That's
I'm
a
just
big
going to keep doing that in 25.
thank you. I'm really feeling that. It's something that really resonates for me. Over this past half a year, I've cried a lot. And I'm not used to that. I've never been a crier my whole life. I had to learn how to cry when I started doing this work like 4 years ago. And it took me a while to start learning how to cry and then all the shame that came when I cried. And then I was sometimes able to cry on a call with like a coach that made me feel safe when I started talking about something, but I needed to actually like verbalize things to really like touch on the parts, and then I would cry, but I could never still cry by myself. And still, like, it's just been such a big process. And over the past, I don't know, maybe 5 months, I've been crying so much and so frequently. And I was really worried at some point. I was like, why am I crying so much? I guess I'm unwell. What's making me unwell? And then I was talking to a really close friend of mine, and she was really worried about me. She was like, I've never seen you like that. Something's wrong. What's wrong with you? And eventually, I realized that I was crying so much, not because I was particularly unwell, but because I was particularly well. Because for the first time ever, my system just started feeling so safe. And so, yeah, just so comfortable and safe to start releasing these deeper layers of, emotion, trauma, things that have been stuck inside for, 2, 3 decades. And it gets to look like something when you start unraveling and releasing and just going deeper and just feeling safe in whatever your experience is. It's not really something that's new, this process of embracing what's here and embracing our softness and just welcoming all the states of being. That's not new. I've been doing this work for 4 or 5 years now, but that's definitely a new level, a new edge, new approach, a whole new level of finding the okayness with what's here right now. When I thought 2024 in many ways was going to be more successful. I, thought I was going to launch my business with big fanfare and, have a lot of clients and have a lot of success and make a lot of money. And granted, a lot of things happened. I ran my first retreat. I started having regular coaching clients and things like that, even though it wasn't really the way that I would have liked to, or, I wasn't earning as much as I would have liked to, or in the scope of an entire year, not that much has happened in the physical. But on the other hand, so many things have happened and shifted and grown, and I've sort of achieved or received and cultivated in this year that I did not plan on or that I couldn't even imagine. And it's just been so, so good to me. And I have to say, like, my intention was like, yeah, build this business, make the money, step into that, create tricks, businesswoman mode. And slowly, but there have not been huge shifts. But I remember last year, this is a funny story, right? In 2023, I was like, I'm done with all this traveling and I'm tired of it. I want to like settle down. And I remember I told you when we met in the fall of 2023, and I was telling people, I was like, I'm not attached. I don't have a plan, but I have a loose intention that from January onwards, so January of last year, I would be based somewhere in a city. And I thought that was going to be somewhere in Europe. And then
I
I had
remember.
my non-refundable flight back to Europe in December 2023. And then my brother was like, let's spend the month together in this city called Medellin. And I was like, okay, let's go. And then my brother left and I was like, where am I going to go next? And then I was like, go where? Do what? Why not just stay here? And then I decided to stay. And so it's January 2024 and I moved into this apartment and I have this thought in my mind. I was like, I wanted to be based somewhere in a city. I wanted to dance. I wanted to sing. Oh, I guess I'm based somewhere in a city that corresponds to all the things I wanted. I have a community around me that loves to dance. Everybody's a DJ and people don't drink alcohol, which is something that like I wanted to dance, but like I didn't want to go to clubs because like, everybody's just drunk. And so I just, all these things started falling into place. And I'm like, it's January and I'm somewhere in a city. And then I had this thought and I was like, I want to build a business. And for me particularly, it's been really, really hard. Just the amount of mental, emotional stamina and resilience and just perseverance and that like constantly showing, like it just costs me a lot emotionally and mentally. But I had this thought, I was like, it's really difficult for me to build a business. And for someone like me who left their home at the age of 19 and never came back, my parents live far away. I know they would love to support me in what I do, but frankly, they don't understand how I operate or what I'm doing. So when they do try to support me, it feels like the opposite, actually, because, the things they say don't feel supportive to me, even if they mean well. And then, I was like, I have an online community, but I didn't have a community of friends around me who could support me building that business, who would understand the things that I'm doing. I didn't have a partner, right? So I was like, I don't have a support system that could help me build this business. I don't have a home. I've just been roaming around the world. And I didn't know, and like, I barely knew anybody here, right? In January last year, I just decided to stay here, but I could feel the potential for community here. And I was like, that could really help me if I was able to stay here and find some stability and have a community. And then looking back, I'm like, wow, like everything I said I didn't have and could help me, the universe gave me first. So like I didn't build a business that I thought I, wanted to build and the money that I wanted to make last year. But it gave me everything that I needed to build upon. It gave me a home, a community, not just people here, but people all around the world who are in the same vibe and just would love me and support me. Partner who supports me and trusts in the thing that I do more than anything. And, like the community, the city here, the people are so ready for this work. And just like I'm meeting people from all around the world who are like connected to investors and the coaching and spirituality, vitality, biohacking space. And I'm just looking at like, okay, like I didn't get the thing that I wanted, but I got the building blocks that can get me there. So that's a really interesting observation that I have about the year. There's like that disappointment is still there a little bit. Is like, oh, like I wanted to make $1 million in 2024 and I didn't. Like, Claire, you failed, like you're a bad manifester. But, we get to play, right? Like we get to throw things in the air and be like, like unattached, right? And if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, great. Like you got a bunch of other things that possibly moved you closer to that surreal, unrealistic goal that you wrote down, right? So that's my riff on the year.
Yeah, I love so much about that because everything that you talked about from, how do you set an intention versus a New Year's resolution and how you went about your business. And you described a little bit of wrongness in the setting out the goal and throwing the goal way out there, to create the business and do all those things. At the same time, you allowed for all this other stuff to come through. So what if if you shift your mindset to what was present and what beautifully came through for you, all of the worry and fear about building this business and am I doing the right thing and am I creating in a positive way and am I a good manifester and am I doing things the right way? It all falls away because you're setting your intention on awareness and noticing what's here and present and building with you as you're just being in the moment, as opposed to you really probably set an inner subconscious intention to put the pieces together to have the business. But your
Yeah.
focus was probably more on the parts that felt unsafe or the parts that felt uncomfortable. So you perceived it as I'm not good enough or I'm not, where I need to be instead of like
Mhm.
just noticing the beauty in it. And I say that because I'm aware that you're noticing both at the same time. Like it's a total both and for you. And that's what I guess manifesting generators do a lot is, they throw spaghetti at the wall and then they drop attachments to things that don't serve and then, go with the rest, right?
Throwing spaghetti at the wall, I can't resonate with that.
No, not at all.
Yeah. I'm wondering. So, this is something I have this question for you. It's inspired by a realization that I had, and I'm going to share that afterwards. But I'm wondering if you can see like an identity shift in yourself, like your whole life. And that's maybe not at all, but that's something that happened for me. I realized like my whole life I was this person. And then this year was like the great unbecoming. It was a big death and rebirth because like, you want to become something else. And then it's like, no, but who would I even be if and I feel like you might, because I know your story, but like up to you if you want to share or not. But I was sitting and reflecting about my year and I was like, like what were the biggest changes? And there's this, like I have a partner now, I have a home, like all this. But then there's this, okay, so I'm going to share mine first so that, I give the context since I'm already riffing about it. But so for me, I realized for half of my life, I've been this traveler. And it's been great. And that's how people know me, how people have known me. Literally, I started traveling when I was 16. I moved to a foreign country first when I was 16. And over the past 11 years, I've lived in like 12, 13 countries, maybe more. So this was my identity. And over the course of this year, but first of all, since I moved here in December 2023, I was like, I have my own bed. I don't want to go anywhere for the first time ever in like a very long time. I had no desire to travel anywhere. And so even just that like desire on the internal, like it was this like, I found stability, I find home, I don't want to go. And then there was this piece of like, I want to start building something. I want to start building a legacy. I want to start helping more people. Like I know I've been helping people on my travels. I was in Taiwan and I hitchhike and this lady's like, thank you for getting in my car because I've never spoke to a foreigner in my life. And I know I've been giving and sharing in that way, but I want to magnify that. And for that, I realized I need to, when I'm constantly moving and all over, like so much of my energy goes into constantly thinking, what's next? Where do I go? Where do I sleep? How do I organize? Constantly like, what's next? What's next? And so much of my energy goes into like logistics and survival. Like, where am I sleeping? What am I eating? How am I moving myself? And now if I want to, build something and magnify the impact I have on the world, I need to get to have more stability and consolidate my energy and then focus and build and project in like an exponential manner out into the world. So it's like, I want to start building and I want to build wealth and I want to build a legacy and I want to help more people. And I don't feel the desire anymore to travel crazily around. Looking back, I was like, wow, I really drop that identity. And it doesn't mean that, it's always going to be a big part of my soul. And I'm sure I'm going to go and travel again. But for now, I feel like, yeah, like I've really kind of matured and like started setting roots. Like, it's like, wow, like I have a home. I've been in the city for over a year now. I have no desire to go anywhere. I have a partner now, like I was just like, okay, it looks like I'm settling down and becoming a mature, boring adult. So for me, that was a huge realization after half of my life of traveling, being this nomad. Like, okay, like that's big. And it didn't feel big, right? It was just kind of gradual. But like, sometimes it really takes actively looking back and then it's like, oh wow, like this has changed. Like my identity, who I am has changed, but it was so natural. So that's one for me. I'm curious if you have something like that, like looking back and you're like, wow, like who Dan is changed.
Yeah, the identity piece for sure. So I would say at the end of a 7-year cycle of where my Facebook profile or my Facebook kind of comment has been a quote, circumstances don't make the man, they reveal the man to himself. And that comes from Epictetus, but it was quoted in the book that my sister gave me December of 2017, a year after I was assaulted and, my ex-wife, we got divorced finally in December of 17. And a Christmas present that year was a book called Unfuck Yourself. And that book uses Epictetus quoted in there. And the first 2 chapters of that book are, what am I willing to do and what am I unwilling to do? And then after that, it gets into, all the different coaching and stuff that he's done over the years and all the nuances that come from starting that journey with really those 2 concepts. I think I just finished that where I can move on from the unpacking of identities that are there, what you're willing to do and what you're unwilling to do, because it really shapes the identity of who you are. I think that journey came to a head in 2024 because it culminated with the fact that I now no longer have to pay alimony to my ex-wife, even though she assaulted me, thanks South Carolina. I don't have to pay alimony anymore because she was with another guy for the last 3 years, and I hired a private investigator and caught her doing the things that she shouldn't do, trying to collect the money and live the other life when you're not supposed to do that, and got a temporary injunction filed. So that was standing up for myself, and that was standing up for me. So I mention all of that because, for context, not from a victim, like this happened to me and I succeeded standpoint with attachments. It's more like the essence of that identity gets to fall away now. That battered spouse gets to fall away now. That divorced male gets to fall away now. When the circumstances change, there really is a shift that shines a light on all your limited beliefs before, present, and after. They don't make the man, but they just reveal the man to himself. And so I sat with myself for probably the last 3 years and was Like now I get to choose who I want to be going forward. Like I get to pick. I don't, I'm not controlled. I don't have blood money to spend every month. I can actually eat, I can put out my finances and figure out, what's mine and what's not. I can accept more. I can receive greater things. I can flow more through my system because I don't have this lack, sucking from my being. And, some of that is a limiting belief that I didn't have control to just step beyond it. And some of that was real circumstance. And now that the circumstances are away, I get to move forward and, choose my identity and how I want to help people. And I think some people vilify themselves based on their circumstances in a way that, if they couldn't, they'd be able to find more peace within. And that's what I was able to find over the last 3 years when the circumstances were not changing, when I was paying that money every month, when I was moving towards zero. We talked about the whole experiment of like, can I actually run out of money? What'll happen when I run out of money? So instead of being in fear of that, I just let it happen and I trusted. And I went negative in 2024 with no debt. And I just stopped paying alimony so that I could feed my kids. And it was 2 months before the, the decision. So prior to the decision being done, I was out, tapped out, pull out the pockets being done, and now essentially if she's able to reverse it, I will owe back alimony, but she's not going to be able to. So I'm at peace with all of that and I can move forward. Like the abundance that I was supposed to receive in 25 has come in. And so that will fund my year for 25. I'll have tax refunds. I'll have this, that, and the other thing. I will get clients. I already know that these things are coming my way. The question becomes, do I attach to this new identity or do I just observe? Like I've observed in 24 more than I have done in 24. And that's what I want to continue to do in 25 is to watch my movie, like I'm going to act and do things. I'm going to create my circumstances. I'm going to live my reality. That's where I'm at.
I love that. The observing. I find it a good question though. Like I'm not really sure what my answer is. Do I fully step into this new identity or do I just watch and attach? Because I feel the urge of like, I want to be that person. Like, why would I not step into it?
It's got to be a both and. I agree with that. It's got to be a both and.
I just really want to congratulate you. I see that standing up for yourself on your side so much. And I feel like that can be a huge identity shift as well. I'm not saying that you were in a victim mentality, but it's like that last piece of like, I want none of that leftover victim identity. Like we all have that, right? Like things happen to us and sometimes it's like, well, like I'm just going to find peace and I don't need to create anymore. I don't need to rough any more feathers around it and I just get to forget about it peacefully and move on. But I feel like what you did there, it was this like, I'm going to stand up for myself and just to close that chapter and completely live that identity of the person that have had this experience. Like, I'm just going to leave that in the past and it's going to stay in 2024 forever now. And now I get to recreate a new identity of like, I stand up for myself and don't fuck with me. And I remember we've talked about it. I was just editing another podcast episode. I feel like once you do it, you've energetically build yourself up to that level of I'm not to be fucked with. Once you really stand up for yourself, you kind of create an energetic boundary so that for the future, you're fending off the potential people who could walk all over you. I've had a similar experience when I sued somebody and it was like so terrifying, right? And it's this like, this time I'm going to stand up for myself and not because I'm reactive or vengeance or whatever, but because that's how I'm going to reclaim my energy and my power and throw away those victim things that happened to me and stand up and be like, this is who I am. And if somebody fucks with me, like I'm ready to stand up for myself. I feel like it's a very powerful declaration to the universe of like,
It is.
I'm here for me. I show up. And that's how I'm going to walk forward. It's almost like you create this energetic boundary. And all these lower energies that would want to come and fuck with you, they're like, no, they stayed behind the boundary, right? You've built that around you.
Yeah, and in my case, it's not about the winning either. And that's the other thing. You stand up and drop attachment to the result. Like, I noticed the attachment. I spent 50 some odd $1,000 to fight this, and in a way, there's lots of ways to rationalize it. Like, you spent 50 to save $1 million over the next 30 years of alimony. You spent 50 to get yourself this freedom. But I mean, that's ego talking, like, not in a bad way. Ego's beautiful. It helps point to what your reality is and how you act in your current reality consistent with your belief systems. You need it. It's a part of you. So it gets to be there. But that $8,000 showed up in an unexpected way. And so by noticing and not being attached to either, oh, this showed up, look at me, I'm an amazing manifester, I just dropped this dollar amount that I needed to drop exactly when I needed it, I can sit in the wonder and the beauty. So I'm both doing and acting. Like, I was going to get the money from somewhere. I was going to do the things anyway. But, like, Source gave me a solid and said, hey, buddy, you're on the right path. Here's this beautiful abundance. And I got to feel my abundance frequency. So that's another thing I'm carrying with me from 24 to 25 is what happened in September. It's like, really? That was just sitting here on the floor?
Can we talk about this? I really want you to share this story. So for anybody who didn't hear our previous podcast, so please go and listen to episode 26. So Dan and I, in January, February, I don't remember, of last year, we recorded this podcast episode in brief. When we met in October 2023, we realized we had both decided to run a very similar experiment when, granted different circumstances, but both of us were kind of like, can I challenge myself to run out of money? Can I run myself to zero and see what happens? For me personally, it was like, I don't even know that's possible. It never happened to me in my whole life. I'm a great saver. So like, why am I so worried of running out of money? Because I never run out of money. I don't even know if it's a real possibility. Let's see. Let's just try going on spending and see what happens, right? And so I was like, Dan, we absolutely need to do a podcast episode and talk about this. What does that mean? Like, how are we going to go about this experiment? How are we dealing with it? Is there fear? Is there surrender? What are we feeling? What are we playing with, right? So Dan, please share your story. Everybody needs to hear this story. And that's it for part 1. Make sure to tune into part 2, where Dan shares his truly incredible story of refusing to be in lack, finding random checks in the mail, and weaving magic and logic. You really don't want to miss this one. I'm wishing you a happy and transformative new year, friends. I'm aware that not everyone is interested in transformation, but if you're here, I will make the assumption that you're one of those who choose to transform consciously and deliberately. Because honestly, I think it will be extremely hard to avoid transformation this coming year, judging from what we are seeing happening in technology, politics, climate, or the workplace. This age will certainly favor those who are able to step up and adapt fast. As always, I'm here and I would love to support you to become the best version of yourself, able to meet the challenges of an ever-changing world with ease, grace, and stability. To find out more about my one-on-one coaching and mentoring offers, head over to clairepoho.com and let's chat. I love you all, and I will see you in part 2.